You are listening to My Traitor, Book 6 of the Nadia Wolf Series. Written by Nicolette Pierce. Copyright 2015. Audio copyright 2025 by Pierced Heart Publishing. Digitally narrated with full cast of voices. Chapter 1. Remy Bourne sat in his Cadillac, staring blankly ahead. The unlit road eased his mind.
She's been seen,
Rat said, his eyes darting as if he could see past the car hood. I heard you the first time. Keep tabs on her, Remy replied.
She's asking around for you. She's using both names.
Make sure she doesn't find me. Spread the word that I've left town. Rat nodded and slipped out of the car, disappearing into the night. Even if the road was lit, Remy wouldn't have bothered to see which way Rat had gone. He had a way of becoming invisible. The small, skittish man proved useful from time to time. That was the only reason Remy kept him around. He didn't trust Rat. But then again, there were few people he did trust. Remy had known this day would come. He knew she'd come for him eventually. He'd kept tabs on her for the last couple of weeks, leaking false information as to his whereabouts. He didn't want to be blindsided again. If Ava Hunt was looking for him, it meant she was up to something, and he was going to find out what it was first. He had a feeling he already knew. He prayed he was wrong. Remy started the engine and drove to his temporary residence. From what Rat said, Ava had already searched his house from top to bottom. Not one thing was left out of place, and not one thing was taken. She used the darkness as her cover and had sophisticated equipment to override his security system. Remy had trained her well, too well. As he pulled into the warehouse lot, he noticed a familiar car parked in his spot. The lock on the outer fence had been cut, allowing the unwanted vehicle inside the gate. He suspected the warehouse door was unlocked as well. Remy parked next to the vehicle and walked the few yards to the door. He took a breath and opened it, stepping into the dim interior.
You've been MIA,
David Miller accused, stepping into a sliver of light from the high windows, mostly broken after years of abandonment. Looks like I'm not anymore, Remy replied dryly, walking past David. David followed behind, his footsteps loud in the cavernous space. On the far corner of the building, Remy opened another door and flipped on a switch, lighting a large square room. It was sparsely furnished, but it fit Remy's current needs with a cot, an old office chair, and a table piled with gear. Video surveillance screens covered the wall.
I see you're expecting company,
David said, surveying the equipment. His gray eyes scanned, taking everything in. Remy knew in just those few seconds that David had already categorized his inventory. Remy eyed the dark-haired man, assessing him. He wondered how much information he could give and still get David to walk away. Too much information, and David would be glued to his back. She's looking for me, he finally said.
I know. You said you'd be gone for a week or two. Maya's now on my case because she hasn't heard from you.
Your wife is your own problem.
You know how she is,
David said with an unaffected shrug.
But I have to say I'm not sure if this is wise.
It doesn't matter either way. Ava's searching for me. David nodded.
She'll find you.
And I'll be ready.
How can I help?
Go home and tell Maya that I'm fine. I just need another week or two.
Remy.
It's not up for debate. I'm doing this alone.
You don't have to. When she sold you out, she sold us all out.
Yes, but I'm the one who trusted her.
We all did. We were a team.
Remy shook his head. David would never understand, and that was fine with him. The less he understood, the better. Is Maya still getting sick? Remy asked, switching the subject.
Not as much as before. She's busy shopping for maternity clothes.
Go home.
Not until Rat shows.
Remy's brow arched. How did David know? Remy had a bad feeling David already knew too much. You already missed him.
He'll be back,
David said, settling into the chair as if he were a man of leisure, which he actually was now that he'd been home, attempting to live a domesticated life. You need a job, Remy said.
I thought about it.
And? David shrugged.
I don't know what kind of job to get. The only thing I'm qualified to do is, well, if it's not government sanctioned, then it's illegal. Since I promised Maya I'd give it up, I'm not sure what to do with myself.
Take care of Maya. David's fingers mindlessly played with the frayed armrest, his long, muscular legs stretched in front of him.
I can only shop so much.
There are other things you can do with her. David smirked.
Which is why she's shopping for maternity clothes. There are 24 hours to fill every day. I'm good, but not that good.
Remy chuckled. Why don't you take over for me at Tropical Rain Casino? I've taken off as much time as I can, and I doubt they'll allow more. I was about to hand in my resignation.
A security guard gig?
David asked, distaste filling his voice. Director of Security, Remy corrected.
They'd hire me.
If I gave them a recommendation, yes. David scratched his jaw.
I don't really need the money.
No, but you need something to do.
And you're sure you don't want my help?
The way David's gray eyes glinted, Remy suspected he wasn't really asking. I don't need help.
What will you do after this is over?
Remy crossed his arms. Hell, he didn't know. It didn't seem to matter either. Ava had ripped his life apart once. It seemed she was aiming for a repeat. I'll figure it out later.
What will you do once you have her?
Remy didn't know that either, but he wanted answers. He hadn't seen Ava Hunt in 6 years. The last time they'd spoken was right before she left their hideout in Iraq. He'd told her he loved her. She'd sent them to hell. Remy jolted awake, sweat trickling down his face. It trailed his neck like the snakes in his dreams. The nightmares were coming back, stronger than before. The scars slashed across his body burned at the flooding memories. He shook his head, ridding himself of the haunting visions that replayed in his mind. The sounds were harder to clear away. They echoed as if he were still there. A spray of bullets had riddled his platoon's hideout, killing the soldiers. They had hidden in a section of town that had already been bombed during a previous strike. No one should have known they were there. They'd been so careful in their planning. But he knew what had happened. As soon as he was shoved into a dank enemy prison cell, he had known it. It was Ava. She'd sold them out. She was the traitor. For months, while rodents scurried through his cell, climbing over his body, sinking their teeth into his flesh, he had hoped he was wrong. For months, bloodied from torture, shackled back into his cell day after day, he had hoped that Ava hadn't sold him out. As time ticked on, he knew it was her. She was trained in search and rescue. She would have found him in a matter of days. She was the best. Remy closed his eyes, his head falling into his hands, remembering the look on David's face when Remy had finally been rescued. Relief and fury had darted across David's face as he picked the shackle locks that held Remy against the red-stained wall. David's reaction was nothing compared to what Remy had felt. How many survived? Remy had asked, his voice brittle from dehydration.
Just me and Ava,
David had answered.
I'd have been here sooner, but I woke up in a hospital 2 days after the attack. You were listed among the casualties.
Casualties. Such a soft word for a hard reality.
There's a traitor in the ranks,
David had said. Ava.
She was cleared after giving her statement. It's not her.
It's her. I guarantee it. Remy shook the cobweb dreams from his mind and stood, ignoring the way his legs trembled. He'd be back to his old self soon. He refused to be cowed by the past. A glance at the clock told him he had slept long enough. It was nearly 6. He wasn't sure when he'd hear from Rat. The man was off the grid and refused to keep even a lousy burner phone on him. But if there was news, Rat would find him. Remy checked the surveillance monitors. Nothing. He read over his notes. Same. Taking a gulp of cold coffee, he cringed as he swallowed. He was getting soft. Not having the comforts of home was starting to wear on him. He even missed his job at the casino. He knew David wasn't interested in it, but Remy had come to enjoy it. His daily routine was its own form of security. he snorted. He was soft. Reaching over to his loaded Glock, he slid it into his waistband and slipped quietly into the warehouse. He walked the length, stretching his legs. A question repeated in his mind. It had been for weeks. Why was Ava searching for him now? At first, he thought she wanted to finish what she had started all those years ago and kill him. But that didn't make sense. She could have done so before now. If that was the case, David would be a target as well. But as far as he could tell, David wasn't. So, that left Remy. A sliver of him wanted to believe she was coming to make amends. That sliver was rough and jagged. Before the thought could cement, he shoved it aside. He couldn't forgive her, even if she was sorry. He had nothing in his possession that she could want. So, what was it? Information? Remy didn't have information either. He hadn't been on the inside since that dark day. He slid his phone from his pocket but then shoved it back in. He was tempted to call David and bounce ideas around. But David was safe for now. Remy wanted to keep it that way. It must have something to do with the raid. The entire platoon had been killed except for David, Ava, and himself. He was pretty sure they'd overlooked David as dead originally. So that left Ava and himself. Why did they keep him alive? Why imprison him and kill everyone else? Death would have been kinder.
Ava Hunt knotted her long brown hair into a tight bun at the nape of her neck, making sure all stray hairs were tucked in. The warm, fresh air prickled her sweat-dampened skin. She had been sitting in her car for hours, watching the two-story house. The only thing she'd discovered was that the pregnant woman loved to shop. In fact, she loved it so much that an entire bedroom had been converted into a closet. With a sigh, Ava picked up the binoculars again and peered through them. David's wife was pretty with her blonde ringlet hair and blue eyes. If Ava had to guess, she was 5 months pregnant. Ava's stomach tightened. Her hands gripped the binoculars, willing herself to stay focused. She wasn't going to think about the past. She had to focus on the present. A man stepped behind the blonde, circling his arms around her, pressing her back into him. He nuzzled her neck as she laughed and tugged away. David Miller. Ava would recognize him anywhere. 6 years did nothing to diminish his handsome looks. If anything, the years were good to him. She could tell he was happy. Leaning back, Ava tossed the binoculars onto the passenger seat. She would retreat for now. While she didn't think David would be of any use, she knew he'd eventually lead her to Brock Remington. Brock and David had worked closely for years, and they were as tight as brothers. But David looked quite content with his wife at the moment. He wouldn't be going anywhere for a while. In the meantime, she'd check out the rest of the Miller family. She'd heard Brock had worked for David's brother for a couple of years. It was worth checking all leads. Ava twisted the key, starting the engine of her black sedan and pulling from the curb. "You can't hide forever, Brock."